Alright, so if you're new here, last year this used to be my pumpkin patch, and it was the first year that we've ever cultivated anything on this patch of ground back here. And my husband, my handy husband, he actually cut into our water line down there and dug a trench, put in this water spigot right here in order for me to water my pumpkins. And we had a decent crop of pumpkins last year. It was really overtaken by weeds, and I did not water enough. So we had irrigation. We had the spigot here, but I was still having to drag a hose and hand water in the heat of the summer, and it kind of broke me, honestly. I had a really rough fall and winter as far as the garden goes. But anyway, it's a new year, it's a new season, and everything is going a lot better. So let's talk about this field. 50 feet wide, 90 to 95 feet long. My husband tilled up this area with his tiller that pulls behind the tractor, and I decided to make our flower beds 30 inches wide, and they go the length of the field, or the width of the field. So they're 30 inches wide, and then the grass paths between them are 36 inches wide. And I did that for multiple reasons. And I went ahead and let the grass paths become grass paths instead of mulching them or worrying about the weeds. I just let them grow back into their grass. And that's mainly because we're on a slope here. And it helps with erosion and water retention, things like that. I laid down a product. It's called Bio360. It's a biodegradable organic product made out of cornstarch, potato starch, different starches. And it's supposed to biodegrade within 4 to 6 months, depending on the use, the weather, the wear on it. It is non-permeable to UV light, to sunlight, and to water. So it keeps the weeds down, which is the main reason for putting it down. But you can't irrigate on top of it. If the little holes that the plants are poked, you poke a hole with your finger. I'll show you. It's pretty thin. You just poke your finger in there. That's why I've been planting things. For each hole, water can get in from rain and things like that. But if you're talking about, everywhere else that doesn't have a hole poked through it, it's bone dry. So we do have drip irrigation laid. We have one line of drip irrigation, which I feel like we should have done more. And maybe we'll add more if we need to. We've done one line of drip irrigation for each bed underneath the Bio360. We came through with a shovel and we marked the lines for the rows to try to make them straight. Laid out the Bio360 comes on a roll. So we made the beds with a shovel or a hoe and created a trench on each side. I then put down some dry fertilizer, and then we laid the irrigation. Then we put the Bio360 on top. And as we were laying the Bio360, we had to get a shovel, or our choice was to get a shovel of dirt, soil, and put it on each side about every 6 feet to keep it taut. You want to keep it as taut as possible. And then I came back and covered each side with the remaining dirt. And it has held up pretty well. I'm really impressed. I'm really excited about it. But I wanted to talk about some of the crops that are in here. Now this is meant to be a cut flower field to sell flowers. And I am kind of thinking that this is going to be my learning year and not so much a selling year, because I've had a lot of crop failure, and so we'll talk about what's in here. So this is Dara. This is what is in the garden bed down there, and it's a lot bigger down there. But this was all sown this spring, so this will produce a really pretty umbel type flower is what they call it. This is millet, and it kind of looks like corn. It produces this awesome little droopy grain head. And this is actually a grain that you can eat. But if you cut that and put it in a bouquet, that's awesome. We have, this is Frosted Explosion grass. Oh, where are you? Frosted Explosion grass. I have one Atriplex here. This is our Amaranth. So we have different kinds of Amaranth here. This is red hoppy dye. And it produces this beautiful dark purple foliage. Isn't that beautiful? And I went ahead and cut these plants. I topped them. I cut the middle stalk out of them so that they would grow smaller shoots. instead of big, real thick. See, I mean, look how thick this is. You can't really put that in a bouquet, but it'll make smaller shoots if you do that. So I've cut those, and we have our first little plume. So it does produce a red plume. You can see that, and it'll get bigger than that. But our first little plume. So that's the red hoppy dye amaranth. Amaranth is also a grain that you can grow to eat. Just FYI. This variety of amaranth is called Love Lies Bleeding, and then this over here at the end is Hot Biscuits. And I need to sow some more. You'll see these little patches of white flowers kind of dotted everywhere. That's called Sweet Alyssum. And I sowed those, I just direct sowed them into the ground, into the soil. They're really good for beneficial insects. This is Cosmos, and you can see they're really tall. I need to stake these up. They're all falling over from the wind and the rain and the ants. So we basically live on an anthill, and all the ants come in here and disturb the roots of these plants, and I don't know what to do about it. You can see we've got some buds, so we're waiting on those. This is Scabiosa. So we have different Scabiosa plants. We had 2 out of like 20 Craspedia. This is so pretty, y'all. This is called Snow on the Mountain Euphorbia. Look at that variegation. And that sweet little white flower in the middle. Just be warned, the Euphorbia is very caustic. Even like the sap, when you cut it, if you get it in your eyes, you gotta like call the poison control center, and it's like, it's not good. So I don't know if I'll grow it again, even though it's absolutely beautiful. Alright, this is called Persian Crests. So we have some of that here. This other plant on the side is called Jewels of Opar, and it will produce a really cool, funky, airy-like flower. It's not a flower, maybe it's a seed head, but anyway, it's supposed to be really cool. Alright, y'all, I'm loving this. This right here is probably my favorite. This right here is probably my favorite thing growing right now. Look at this Celosia. Can you tell it's like a hot pink color? Isn't that gorgeous? I'm loving this Celosia. We have all kinds of different colors. So this type right here, where it kind of looks a little bit like a brain, that's called coxcomb. Let's see if we can find another one. Yeah, see how it kind of squiggles like that, like a brain? Oh, that one's a good one. Those are called coxcomb type Celosia. Then you have the plume type. That's what this is. It's like a spiky plume bit. Alright, so we have all kinds of different Celosia right here that are doing really well. I am loving that plant. This row over here with the netting on it, which I do have more netting that I need to put up. This has Sweet Annie, or Artemisia, Sweet Annie. That's what this is right here. It smells really, really, really good. And people use it fresh, but mostly dried, in wreaths and things like that. And I don't know if you can tell, but there are holes poked all along this row. So almost this entire row was planted with Sweet Annie. That was the first thing I planted out here. And I maybe have 10 plants left. I am learning. This is a huge learning curve with this Bio 360, and we had like 90-degree weather. And out here on this hill, it's just beaten down by sun. It's beaten down by the wind. Anything that touches this black Bio 360 is really hot. It just dies. So I lost almost all of my Sweet Annie. I do have some more started in the grow room, but yeah, lesson learned. And then a lot of these things, guys, I should have started in the fall last year for my region, and then planted them out last fall as little baby seedlings, let them overwinter, and then I could have harvested them sooner. So I will be doing that this fall. It's just last fall, like I said, I was so burned out, I just did not want to touch anything to do with the garden. But we have poppies. So these are little bitty poppies. that are growing right here. More of this sweet alyssum. I gotta hurry up because I need to cut some stuff. This is straw flower. So like I said, all of this was started this year, this spring. We have straw flower. We have marigolds planted at the end of some of the beds just as a companion plant. This is statice. And guys, look at this thing right here. You are not supposed to be there. Y'all, he has been eating up all of my statice, the inside of my statice plants. I'm looking right now for something to get him with because I don't like grabbing him with my bare hands. Ugh. That's like a cutworm type caterpillar. Okay, but I wanted to show you, let's see if we can find any more, the damage that this guy's been doing to my plants. So luckily, this guy right here has survived, okay, and it's about to produce some type of bloom. And apparently the statice dries really well also. But look at this. Look at this. Like, this is like a healthy looking leaf. And all of this is chewed up to bits. This one too. He's chewing the inside of my plants. And it just makes me frustrated. But I'm learning, right? We're learning. Okay. And if you'll have to excuse the weedy mess that my grass paths are, I don't have a mower yet, like the right size that I need to mow in here. Our riding lawn mower is a lot wider than these paths. And I did weed whack it one time, but when I did, there were a ton of ladybugs in the weeds. This is basil. So we have lots of basil. We have lime, aroma, and Mrs. Burns lemon basil. That's that. Here we have ageratum, and it produces a really pretty purple flower. I'll show you one right there. So if you notice, in the corner of the screen there, at the top of the screen, is a ladybug. Here's another ladybug. Let me see if I can find more. I was out here earlier and they were just all over this stuff. So if you also notice, this ageratum, the leaves are curled up like this and just look terrible. Especially these down here. Ugh. I was like, what in the world is going on? Look at that pretty flower though. The leaves are all curled up like that because they had aphids on them. And I think I told you, well, this is a new video, but aphids are little green or brown bugs that like to suck the life out of your plants, literally. You can get rid of them by spraying them off, usually with a water hose. But I noticed these leaves becoming curled, and they had little white flecks on top of the leaves. And I was like, what is that? Apparently it's the exoskeleton of the aphid. And the aphid itself is like, you know, eating the plant, sucking the life out of the plant. But then I also noticed the ladybugs. So right now I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ladybugs just on this handful of plants, and there's no telling how many else is out there. So because I didn't spray and I just let the ladybugs come in, I still get the flower because they're still flowering. I'm not really growing these for the leaves, even though I would use the leaves if they were healthy for as like foliage. But you know, I'm growing them for the flower, and it's still producing the beautiful flower, and the ladybugs get their buffet, what they need, and hopefully the ladybugs will stick around all season long because I'm going to have things for them to eat. I'm trying to garden and farm as naturally as possible, so that's part of it. I just wanted to put that out there. And if you have been debating or thinking about organic gardening or natural gardening, or how can I garden without using pesticides or herbicides, you know, this is what it looks like. It's a little bit weedy, okay? I mean, yes, the weeds are kind of crawling up over my beds here. It's a little bit weedy, and my plants don't look like they belong in a magazine, but they're still there. They're still producing, and it makes me feel great. I feel great about it. One other thing about it, you know, I have young kids, and my kids come out here and they can smell the flowers, and they can touch the flowers, and they can cut their own flowers, and I don't have to worry about what they're touching and if they're going to put their hands in their mouth or wipe their nose or rub their eyes. It makes gardening a whole lot more enjoyable. Okay, there's my soapbox. I'm getting off of it. This is dill, a little patch of dill, and that is being grown for the flowers. that it will produce. This is a succession of sunflowers, and they are looking really good. This is Pro-Cut sunflowers. Pro-Cut sunflower, this is Pro-Cut orange. Pro-Cut sunflowers are a hybridized, breeded sunflower that grows between 55 to 60 days after the day it's planted, and it's a pollenless sunflower. So it's really good for using in bouquets and for farmers markets and for selling to the public because it does not produce pollen, but I also think that it doesn't produce a sunflower seed. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I think that's correct. We have different sunflowers here, whole different succession. So these are more of the Pro-Cut orange, and you'll tell they get taller as we keep going. So we also have under the cage here, which I did have this kind of cage looking apparatus on here to help protect the sunflowers from wind. I had a insect netting over it to protect them from the wind when they were first planted out, and I just haven't moved it yet. Also, I had it placed here to keep the bunnies away from it, so it's actually worked, obviously. These are Sunfield Green sunflowers, Pro-Cut sunflowers. This is more orange, and then we have Horizon, Pro-Cut Horizon. If you can tell, they're not ready yet. I mean, they're budding up, but they're not ready yet. And then the ones at the very end down here, I'm really hoping we have one that's ready. Look at this. You'll see those yellow petals in there? This one is almost ready. I'm keeping my eye on that one, because you know the grasshoppers and stuff will get in there and try to eat that thing before I can get to it. Alright, these are our zinnias. This is Benary's giant zinnias. We have different colors. This, I think, is golden yellow, giant golden yellow. We have Oklahoma ivory. That's what that is right there. And the Oklahoma ones are smaller. The Benary's giant ones are supposed to be 3 to 4 inches across, quite a bit bigger. So this is an imposter I discovered today, because this bed is supposed to be lime. You see I don't know if you can tell, they're going to be green flowers. But that one is an imposter. We have, I believe this is wine. It's a dark purple color. It hasn't opened all the way yet. This is scarlet. It's a red color. And then this one right here, I don't know if you can see, it's going to be coral. That's a coral one. Okay, so that is all of the flowers that I have planted right now, and I obviously have a lot of open space here. But one of the things that I'm going to get to tomorrow are my Dahlia tubers. So I've never grown dahlias before, and I was going to experiment with just 5 Dahlia tubers this year because they can be really harsh. My environment can be really harsh on the dahlias. We get a lot of hot sun, and I think they'll need a little bit of shade. But excuse me, I planted them in an area where I think they'll get kind of natural shade at the end of the day, which I think they'll need. But I started with 5 Dahlia tubers, and now I'm going to have 26. So I went ahead and dug the holes. I weeded this whole section, both sections, hand weeded these, put down a bunch of leaf mulch, and then it rained 4 inches. And the Dahlia tubers will actually rot if they go in wet. So I went ahead and dug the holes here to let it dry out. I'm going to be planting those tomorrow. I'm using the T-posts as stakes. And then you can see we have some here. This is Peaches and Cream. That's Boom Boom White. Those are the ones that I had already purchased. So I was talking earlier about the fall sown crops. So this is Rudbeckia that was sown in the fall. And isn't it beautiful? Alright guys, so thank you for joining me on my flower farm, flower field tour, and we'll see you